I'm going to say something pretty obvious. Violence is a big part of video gaming. It's actually quite hard to think of a game where fighting, shooting, and killing isn't paramount to an enjoyable and addictive gameplay loop. I personally grew up in a time where FPS shooters were practically inescapable, meaning that if you weren't firing bullets, you weren't doing it right. But thankfully, games these days have a few more tricks up their sleeve, and that extends to the RPG genre. The crutch of turn-based combat with the typical attack, magic, item menu seemed like a necessity in the world of RPGs, but over the years, clever developers have found innovative ways to get around these traditional methods, and some have even taken combat out of the equation altogether. So in a bid to showcase that violence isn't always the answer, we are going to showcase some amazing RPGs where combat is completely optional. Please like and subscribe and enjoy the video. Before we kick things off, here is the selection criteria that we used to make this list. In at number 1 we have Disco Elysium. A lot of the games that pop up on this list have combat systems included for more trigger-happy gamers out there, but we begin with a monumental CRPG classic where there is absolutely no combat present at all. Disco Elysium is a title where you play as Harry Dubois, a down-on-his-luck cop with amnesia who will need to overcome many obstacles, mainly caused by his dangerous mix of hubris and incompetence, to solve a murder case in the region of Revachol. You would think that this would lead to a game where shooting and asking questions later is a valid option, but Disco Elysium is a game that is deeply entrenched in D&D mechanics, having players use dice rolls, skill checks, and decision making to progress the story. Sure, you might have to punch up a drugged up child, or the man mountain that is Measurehead, but when all is said and done, you'll only land a killer blow if you pass the necessary check. So it doesn't matter if you're the toughest brute in the room, you'll need Lady Luck on your side too. The absence of combat allows Disco Elysium's incredible writing to take center stage and results in an experience that is straight out of the RPG top drawer. So if you fancy yourself a maverick detective, this is the game for you. In at number 2 we have Dishonored. You know how most stealth games tend to go. You begin with the best of intentions and aim to get through each mission without arousing any suspicion whatsoever, but before long, you stand atop a mountain of corpses with the searchlights fixed on your position and you begin to wonder where it all went wrong. Well, Dishonored is a game that facilitates this ruthless and aggressive approach, but equally, it gives you all the tools necessary to ghost through the entire game without harming anyone. Dishonored is a wonderfully designed stealth game with plenty of RPG elements, allowing players to explore the world of Dunwall, experiment with multiple paths of progression, and also gives Corvo the outsider's mark, allowing him to use superhuman powers to maintain his oneness with the shadows. Thanks to this cavalcade of abilities, non-lethal weapons, and methods of traversal, the game acts as a sleuth sandbox where pacifism is encouraged. Don't get us wrong, it's not easy by any means, but if you consider yourself the sneaky sort, then Dishonored is a wonderful stealth RPG you need to check out. In at number 3 we have Fallout New Vegas. You may have noticed that Bethesda Fallout titles can be a little bit predictable in terms of quest design, usually offering a good or a bad ending, and sometimes you don't even get that. This is probably why so many Fallout fans adore Fallout New Vegas, as this game allows you to roleplay as a smooth-talking savant with the ability to complete any quest, talk down any rival, or turn combat into camaraderie with their command of the spoken word. Many may think that getting through the entirety of Fallout New Vegas without killing a soul would be damn near impossible, but with a high speech stat, you can talk yourself out of pretty much any ounce of trouble that you find yourself in. Not to mention, you can enlist the help of companions who can happily do the dirty work for you. Whether you need to use your charm to take the lucky 38 and oust Mr. House, or you need to convince Legate Lanius to back down at the Battle of Hoover Dam, as long as your character has the gift of the gab, you can watch the credits roll without firing a single bullet. So if you were looking for a new excuse to return to this RPG gem, this is the motivation you need. In at number 4 we have Planescape Torment. When you hear that a game is based in the Dungeons & Dragons universe, you pretty much assume that with enough lucky dice rolls, you can pretty much avoid combat altogether. But as has been shown by games like Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Neverwinter, and many more, combat is often inevitable. However, aside from about 4 non-negotiable fights within the game, you can play through the 1999 D&D classic Planescape Torment without engaging with the combat system at all. With a high charisma and intelligence build, careful decisions when dealing with dialogue, and a lot of running from mob enemy battles, you can make your way through this rich narrative without casting an offensive spell or bloodying your blade. This frees you up to get to know the cast of characters in Planescape, use creative workarounds to progress quests without igniting any feuds, and of course, choose your own destiny in this D&D campaign. Despite its age, Planescape Torment remains one of the strongest D&D video games on the market, so if you fancy a new campaign, this old relic could be just the thing that you're looking for. In at number 5, we have The Outer Worlds. After the success of Fallout New Vegas for Obsidian Entertainment, it was only a matter of time before they decided to take a crack at a Fallout-adjacent open-world adventure of their own, which would eventually come in the form of The Outer Worlds. This open-world title would swap the apocalyptic setting of New Vegas for something outside of Earth's atmosphere, but the quirky writing, abundance of player choice, and excellent world building are clear to see in this title once again. And speaking of that player choice, if you want to take the diplomatic route and solve problems with your words rather than your fists, you can do so, as this game allows for a complete pacifist run. The Outer Worlds' biggest issue in my eyes was that there was a lack of content when compared to the rich worlds on the market. However, what is present in this game is remarkable. So if you passed on this one on release, I would urge you to go back and do this one right. In at number 6, we have Undertale. Speaking of games that are jam-packed with outlandish, irreverent humour, we have Undertale, an RPG Maker game from the mind of Toby Fox, which has you play as Frisk as they aim to escape the underground and avoid succumbing to the monsters that reside in the Forgotten Realm. It sounds pretty sinister, but the game pretty much breaks every rule in the game developer's playbook, offering a satirical and silly adventure that doesn't take itself all that seriously. The game has a rather creative bullet hell combat system where players will control a heart on screen and try to avoid projectiles, and you will need to engage with this in some aspects of the game. However, you can make your way through the entire game using clever workarounds, dialogue options, and more to avoid killing any monster you come across. Is the pacifist route more difficult and time consuming than the standard playthrough? You bet it is, but it's a walk in the park compared to the complete genocide route, which is emotionally devastating. So next time you play Undertale, swap attacks for compliments, actions, and hugs. In at number 7, we have Kingdom Come: Deliverance. Unless you're aware of the merciful achievement in Kingdom Come: Deliverance, it can be a bit of a shock to those familiar with this Slavic RPG that you can get through the entire game without killing anyone. But it is outside of one scripted and unavoidable encounter in the main quest, you can get through the entire campaign without killing anyone. And it's actually a bit of a blessing in disguise, as the combat system in this game is a tough nut to crack, to say the least. You'll need to ensure that Henry has high speech and lockpicking skills so that you can avoid fights, and you'll need to have decent unarmed stats just in case things go south. But through careful planning and a keen understanding of the world around you, getting through this one without killing a soul is actually pretty manageable, albeit very time consuming. It's a rather interesting role-playing experience within a game that is already brutally realistic, allowing you to be a morally good guy in a time where killing and bloodshed are just par for the course. So if you want an authentic role-playing experience, Kingdom Come: Deliverance is a great option. In at number 8, we have Deus Ex: Human Revolution. Are you in the market for a stoic and reluctant anti-hero? Well then, you need to become familiar with Adam Jensen, your augmented player character in Deus Ex: Human Revolution. You would actually expect the original Deus Ex to have more pacifist options than its eventual successor, but despite Human Revolution's more FPS action-focused approach, you can actually get through the entire game without killing anyone, excluding the bosses. Through a blend of stunning enemies with weapons, making use of your augments to bypass certain situations, and using stealth takedowns, players can make their way through the entire game, and indeed all of the side content, as a pacifist. This means that if you took Adam's recurring line, "I didn't ask for this," to heart, you can do him a solid and keep any blood off his hands. Is it the best Deus Ex game? No, not even close in my opinion, but it's perfectly fine and worth giving a shot if you like cyberpunk themed RPGs. In at number 9 we have The Age of Decadence. Our penultimate entry sees us move back into the realm of the CRPG, and this time we have The Age of Decadence, a game that admittedly takes a lot of liberties with established RPG design principles in the hope of creating a game that offers something fresh and new, a goal that was well and truly met. This game isn't about being a grand wizard and slaying the great evil threatening the world, nor is it about obtaining grand amulets and armor to give you a leg up on those around you. Instead, it's about making clever decisions, working against systems and powers that be, and overcoming adversity through cunning and risk-taking. So with this in mind, if you play your cards right by selecting a particular type of character like a merchant or a lore master and build this character accordingly, you can make it through the entire game and thrive in this RPG world without ever engaging in battle at all, which is great because the combat in this game is very punishing indeed. Essentially, you are an average Joe, and if you want to carve out a protagonist's role in this universe, you're going to have to work for it. But if I know you guys, you'll ace this challenge without breaking a sweat. In at number 10 we have Watch Dogs 2. Lastly, we have Watch Dogs 2, which is our pick of the bunch, as realistically we could have chosen any of the Watch Dogs games. You may be a little puzzled by this, as on the surface it seems pretty unlikely that you could get through certain missions without killing enemies. However, if you master the hacking and gadget mechanics in this game, you may be surprised just how much you can get done without ever being at the scene of the crime. Plus, even if you can't get the job done without being at the scene, there is a wide range of non-lethal weapons and items that will help you flank around enemies and get through areas in a pinch. You will need to use a little bit of headcanon to justify the spider tank segment, but all in all, a non-murderous run is very possible. It's a series that has always prided itself on offering many different ways to deal with situations without ever having to engage in combat in a traditional manner, so it only makes sense that players try and roleplay as Marcus Holloway and let their hacking ability carry them through. While Watch Dogs has never been able to rival GTA in the open world RPG sandbox world, Watch Dogs 2 is still criminally underrated, and it's about time you found out why. So there you have it guys, 10 amazing RPGs where combat is completely optional. As you can see, going in guns blazing to every single encounter in an RPG isn't always the best option. As shown by the games listed, you can make your way through the entire RPG campaign without killing or harming a soul, and in some cases you can avoid combat entirely. If you're someone who has always thought that fighting was unavoidable within video games, I urge you to try out some of these titles, and as always, thank you for watching RPG Informer. I've been Cal, and I will see you next time.